All right, it looks like we're live. I am in my kitchen right now. I tried to get my face down so I could talk to you guys, and it ended up being a real weird angle. So we're going to leave it like this for now. Um, so what's happening in this write-in is I have to make a cheesecake. I'm going to still be writing. I still need words. I'm behind on the words that I want for today. But tomorrow is Thanksgiving here in the United States, and I want a cheesecake. And I didn't get to make it earlier, so I figured I would multitask this evening and put the two things together. So let me check because my system looks like it's going a little slow today. Um, Let me know how you guys are doing. Oh, there it is. It's right there. My sound is acting funny. If you guys are having any issues hearing me, let me know in chat because I don't. Oh, you know what? I should type that out just in case you are having issues hearing me. Okay. So I'm going to be doing a sweet potato cheesecake. In the footer for this is the ingredients for a basic cheesecake. Hey, Angel Ree, thanks for joining. So I'm going to put in I have in the footnotes already the recipe for a basic cheesecake. I'm going to be doing a sweet potato, so things are going to be just a little bit different for me, but it's mostly going to be the same. We are going to be doing a sprint in just a couple minutes here, but first I am going to put the crust together. So I've already done a bit of the work. I'm using crushed pecans for this, and I have toasted them already. It is about a quarter cup. I don't measure, so I'm eyeballing it, but I would call that a quarter cup. And then I've also got my graham crackers. Again, both of these I just put through I've got a mini food processor, so that was how I ground them up. If you guys don't have a food processor, you can literally put them in a Ziploc bag and smash them up with a mallet. I've done it a bajillion times. It works perfectly fine. The other ingredient for the crust that is a necessity is butter, and I've got butter melting on the stove right now. And it looks done. So the crust is really easy. You're just going to dump your graham cracker in the bowl, and you're going to dump the pecans on the bowl. I was really excited today because I realized that I have all of these little glass matching bowls, so I can actually look like a professional food vlogger person here. But yeah, so that was just the graham crackers and the pecans that I'm using for this. Depending on what flavor you're doing for your cheesecake, you can spice this however you want. Because I am doing a sweet potato, I've got some nutmeg, some cinnamon, and none of these can be read on the screen because I don't have anywhere close to the correct equipment to do this in the kitchen, and ginger. So those are the only 3 spices I'm going to use for this. I don't like to go really heavy with the spice because I like the actual sweet potato to show in it. And again, I am not a measurer, so I am just going to put a dash of all of these in there just to spruce up oh God, it's not open. Excuse me. This was going to be my first panic. It is still sealed because this is brand new. So I'm going to be a little bit messier and just shake it in like that. We are going to get the first sprint going by 10 after, I promise you, which reminds me to get my timer set while I am doing this. So I just put a little bit of cinnamon and ginger and nutmeg into it. And of course, because I'm not on dual screens, everything just got messed up. There we go. Okay. And then to this, I am just going to add, this is just a stick of melted butter. That is a half cup. If you live in a place where they don't come in the sticks that they come in America, I'm just going to dump that on there and scrape the excess out. I do this on the stove, not because I'm real fancy, but because I don't have a microwave. There's absolutely no reason you can't microwave this. Okay, so that is all that is going in there. And I am going to just mix these up. Usually I am trashier than this, and I just use my hands. This is also if you have a bunch of people over, this is good work to give somebody else to do, but you just want to make sure that it's well incorporated. Obviously, it is going to be chunky because it is made out of crushed graham crackers and pecans. But you want to make sure that everything is wet in that bowl. If you guys hear something screaming in the background, don't worry. It's my cat. He is, I don't know what he's doing. Okay. So that is our crust. So that means that it is time to do our first sprint. We are going to do this first sprint for 10 minutes. I don't know what it's going to say. It's going to say 15 here. We are going to change that to 10 minutes. And of course, this window is gigantic here. So let me, oh, good. It's already on there. Okay. So we are going to, oh, Angela is writing a bakery themed romance. I just saw that. That's what I did last year. It was also paranormal bakery romance. Okay, so we're going to write for the next 10 minutes. It is 8 after, so I will see you guys at 18 past. Okay, so that was our first sprint. Let me know how you guys did in comments. I will not be keeping you up to date on how I'm doing, not because I'm not writing, I am, but that is too many things for me to juggle right now. So I've got the mix for the crust here. The next step is super easy. Really, everything about this is really easy. People are scared of cheesecakes, but they're really easy. Just like anything, there are really complicated recipes for them. There is a delicacy to them in the baking process, but this, you see the list of ingredients, it's really not, there's not that much to it. So I've got my pan. I believe this is a 9-inch. It might be a 10-inch. Doesn't matter. It is not prepared in any way. Obviously, it is clean, but other than that, I haven't put any sort of grease or flour or baking spray in it. If you guys are bakers and you're not using baking spray, I highly recommend it. It's a combination of oil and flour in a spray. It's fantastic. So it doesn't need to be prepared. However, it does need to be a spring form pan. So that's what it is, guys. That just the bottom pops out really easy. There's no way to lift a cheesecake out of a pan. So it does absolutely have to be a spring form. That is essential to it. The other thing with this, some spring forms have a nice little gully right here. If yours does not, mine does not, obviously. If yours does not, when you make this, you do need to bake it on a cookie sheet because it will leach butter out of it. Okay, so this is my crust mixture. Again, it is graham crackers and pecans and a stick of butter, and then some seasoning that will fit what the sweet potatoes that I'm doing, the sweet potato cheesecake. I use honey graham crackers for this just because that is what I had. If I hadn't already had them, I probably would have used cinnamon, but you can use either flavor. It absolutely doesn't matter. You can also use other things for crusts. Oreos work really well if you're doing something chocolate. I've used Nilla wafers before. The problem with Nilla wafers is oh no, it's not Nilla wafers, ginger snaps. I've used ginger snaps before. They were delicious. It makes a really weird crust that you can't really cut through with a knife, but you can break up with a fork. It was really strange. Okay, so as you can see, putting this crust down, the only thing with it is messy because you need to use your hands. I have seen some tutorials where they'll use like the bottom of a cup. It doesn't work right. I am a cake decorator by trade, and so kind of like putting my hands into things is really like a day-to-day thing for me, or it was when I was still working as a cake decorator. I'm not right now. I'm only a writer right now. But this really is the best way to do it. If you have rings, you do want to take them off. It will leave impressions in it, which, I mean, whatever, because you're going to be pouring stuff on top of it. But the bigger issue is that it will get all gummed up in your jewelry. So please don't wear rings when you do this, although it is really funny. I used to have a ring that had a star on it, and I forgot once, and there are all these little tiny stars in this. Just a fun little snippet into my life. Okay, so I've got it pretty well smushed down. It doesn't need to be perfect by any means. I do try to bring, it's hard to tell because the lighting is shit in here, but I did bring the crust up a little bit on the sides. That's more of a style thing. It is up to you what you like to do with your cheesecake. There, I'm good with that. I'm going to go wash my hands for obvious reasons. All right, let me dry them. And let me take a quick peek at comments. So Synthesia also is a big fan of the baking and writing. Yay. And Angel Bree got 240 on that sprint. Well done for a 10-minute. I'm going to put this to the side. And by the side, on top of the oven, or on top of the stove, excuse me. And I am done with this bowl now. So that is going to get tossed into the sink. Actually, haha, I say that just as I put it in like soapy water, so now I'm drying it off of my dress. Don't mind me, I'm just one of those people. I'm going to show you the potato really quick because I want to get this next sprint going in a couple minutes here. So I don't have time to actually show you how to make the base on the cheesecake yet, but I can show you how to deal with a sweet potato. So with sweet potatoes, you always want to boil them skin on. And if you are doing this for anything where the potato is mashed, whether you're just doing a sweet potato mash or if you are doing something like this or if you're doing a sweet potato pie, you want to boil the life out of it. You want it to be super soft. Now, if you've ever tried to peel a sweet potato, you know it's pretty much impossible when they are not cooked. When they are cooked, though, the peel comes right off. You generally get this like extra layer underneath them. And that could come off too because that's got a lot of fibers in it. And you don't want those, especially when you're making anything custardy like what I'm doing. And that was it. That was literally all it took to peel a sweet potato. For anything like a custard, what you're going to want to do with it is you're actually obviously not into the bowl where it is already mashed. This is an extra one because I already got enough from what I've already made some of these. But what you'll actually want to do instead of like using a potato masher or a blender or whatever is you're actually going to want to put it into a fine mesh strainer or a cheesecloth, and you can use your hands or a tool, I don't care, but just push it through there because there will still be some fibers inside it. And if you leave those fibers inside it, they're going to be in your custard. Your custard isn't going to be as smooth. And why would you want a custard that's not as smooth? So I've already done this though with 2 sweet potatoes. And I feel like what I have here is enough for this. I've also got it sitting on a paper towel because I want it to get some of the moisture out of it. One of the problems with doing substitutions on recipes is it can be easy to forget the moisture levels in it. Adding this to a regular cheesecake base means already I'm going to have to change the liquid levels in it, but I want to not have to change it too much. So when I did this about an hour ago, I laid it onto some paper towels to get a little bit of that excess out. All right, I'm going to go rinse my hands off again, and then we're going to go ahead and start the next sprint. If I was smart, I would keep a towel here, but I'm not, so here we are. Okay, so our next sprint is going to be let's go ahead and make this a 15-minute sprint because I do want to get this thing in the oven kind of soon. So we're going to write for the next 15 minutes. It is 8:28. I timed that well, except now I have to do some math. So 8:28 is going to be 8:38 is going to be 8:43. Okay, so we are going to write until 8:43, and then we'll get this cheesecake made up. Ooh, words. Okay, so that is time up. Hey, Nikki, and hey, Chandra. Thank you for joining me. I did write through that sprint, I promise. But this story is going really interesting because I had it all outlined of like, just like the basics of like what each scene was going to be, what was going to happen in the scene. And the characters are not developing at the rate that I thought they were going to, or they kind of did a thing I wasn't expecting. So I'm still having these scenes, but like right now they're supposed to be all lovey-dovey in this scene, and they're doing exactly what I told them to do. But also, they don't like each other yet. So fun with writing. I did just bring up my KitchenAid, and hold on one second because I just noticed that my paddle is a little grody for this. So we're going to do a quick clean. Okay, and if you just tuned in and haven't noticed the crazy title of this write-in, I am making a cheesecake. So at this point, I have already made the crust, and I have put it in the pan, and that is just graham crackers and nuts and butter with a little bit of, I don't need that on there yet, a little bit of seasoning in it, some spices in it. So now we're going to go to the cheesecake. And like I said before this break, cheesecake is actually super easy to make. It does not need to be a ton of ingredients. However you want to jazz it up, the sky is the limit for ingredients that way. But the basics of it are very simple. For this base recipe, one thing I will say for it, if you want to change it to a chocolate cheesecake, this is kind of true for anything. Any recipe that doesn't have chocolate in it that you would like to add chocolate to, you have to be really careful of because chocolate has chemical components to it that affect how it bakes. And I can never remember what exactly it is, if it's like alkaline or something like that. But like it's why sometimes you have to use baking powder and sometimes you have to use baking soda, stuff like that. For a cheesecake, it happens to mess up the actual baking. One of the biggest problems that happen with cheesecakes is that the top will split and they won't be very pretty. They still taste good, but they're not as pretty. And when you put the effort into making a cheesecake, which technically, like this part of it is easy, but then there's like an 8-hour process with the cooling. If you put that much effort into it, you probably want it to be pretty. So you do want to use a recipe that is specifically for a chocolate cheesecake, and you will have a much more complicated baking process for it. So what I'm putting in the bowl, this is just 3 blocks of cream cheese. If you are not in the US and it is sold in a different way, they are 8-ounce blocks. So it's 24 ounces total. Wow. Okay, they're 225 grams per block. So that's some math right there. 2, 4, 8 would be 875 grams. You do need this to be soft. So, this is something that they'll always say room temperature for. However, if your room is cold, you'll want it to be warmed up a little bit more than that. My suggestion for that is if you have an oven that you can put on a really low setting, do that. If your oven doesn't go to a low setting, just like turn it on and let it get some temperature to it, and then put the cream cheese in there and keep the door open. Just to give it a little bit more heat. For me, we do keep our house cold, but I've got a space heater in my bedroom, so I just turn that space heater up. So in the actual cheesecake. You see the ingredients below. Also, tell me how you guys did. We are in a writing sprint, even though I'm making a cheesecake. So let me know if you guys got any writing done. But yeah, so anyways, you see the list of ingredients below. For this, if you're doing that base recipe, you're literally going to dump everything in there except for the eggs, and you're going to mix it all up, and then you're going to add the eggs. This is, again, one of the nice things with cheesecake is it really doesn't need to be that complicated. It's not something that is 800 steps long. It really is just dump everything in the bowl and mix and move on. We are probably going to have a slightly longer break this time while I am setting this up. Just a warning, but this will be the only big step that we have here. Also, if I have not mentioned it before, your oven should be at 375 on a cheesecake. And that is, again, specifically for one that does not have chocolate in it. Okay, so I got my cream cheese in there. The next up is the sugar. In the recipe below, it says 1 cup of white sugar. That was actually, I should have showed you. I'm not good at these things. This was actually a combination of white sugar and brown sugar. If you do that substitution and you are baking, keep in mind that brown sugar does have a bit more moisture in it than white sugar. So whatever your liquids in it happen to be, in this case, it is milk. You'll want to cut down that milk just slightly so it doesn't end up being too wet. And then this is, this is not what I want. Ignore what I just did. I'm one of those people who like to repackage things. There we go. So that tub that looked like cornstarch was actually baking soda. For this, you want baking soda. So make sure you're using actual baking soda. And I'm just going to put a tablespoon of it in. No, I am so sorry. You want to use cornstarch. Please ignore that. You know that when you're talking to things, I don't know. I'm sure that like people are professionals, where professionals don't do stuff like that. But that like thinking and talking thing is way more complicated than it should be. You want cornstarch in this. Cornstarch, cornstarch, cornstarch. It is a thickener in this. You need thickeners. You do not need baking soda. My apologies. And Anjali did get back and did some planning for your next chapter. That's always a good thing to do. Okay, so in here, all I've got right now is the cream cheese and the sugars and the, I almost said baking powder again, or baking soda. I've got cornstarch in there. I'll remember that eventually. You know, it's funny, I've made this thing 1,000 times too, but as soon as I start talking, I get all confused. If you are following the basic recipe and you're not doing substitutions or you're not doing liquid substitutions, you should be putting your milk in right now. I am not putting milk in this because I'm going to be putting that sweet potato in here. And with that sweet potato, I don't think I'm going to need any milk at all. We're going to check it when I get to that point. But I have a feeling that that is going to be way more moisture than I need to begin with. And I'm not going to need the milk at all. And if I do need milk, I will actually use heavy cream for exactly that reason. I don't want this to be too runny. I don't like cheesecakes to be super soft. Okay, so that is in there enough that I can put the sweet potato in. That is my sweet potato. Just flip that in there. Woo! And we're going to let this run again. All right, and that is looking pretty squishy right there. So I am happy with that for now. It's also going to get some eggs in it. I'm going to go ahead and do a little sprint right now, guys, because I feel like I've gone a little bit long here. So let me go ahead and queue up another sprint for you. We're going to go a little bit shorter. We're going to go back to oh no, you know what? We're going to stick with that 15-minute. And it is 8:55, so that is going to take us to 9:10. Good luck, everybody. Okay, that was time. I got a little bit of writing there, but I had to take a little break in the middle of it. So not as much writing as I wanted, but that's okay. So I do still need to put some spices in this, but the big ingredient that I am missing right now, the final step in a basic cheesecake, is the eggs. It is 3 eggs. You want them to be at room temperature. That is for pretty much all baking. I say pretty much because I feel like there's always an exception to the rule. I can't think of any off of the top of my head, but pretty much in general, you want eggs when you're baking to be at room temperature. I see a 387 there. Fantastic job with that. Sorry, I was hearing a weird sound. If you guys happen to be watching me in the last minute there and saw me put a whole bunch of eggs in a pot, that has nothing to do with this. I'm also making deviled eggs tomorrow, so I am boiling some eggs for deviled eggs. And I was just trying to multitask. So with these eggs, you do want them to be slightly beaten before they go in. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. I grabbed a whisk that was way too big for this, but that's okay. You just want it to be decently blended. It doesn't need to be like super frothy or anything. You just want the yolk and the eggs to be well incorporated. And then once I get this in, I will reevaluate that mix to see if I do want to add any milk to it, because it is looking pretty firm right now. I'm not worried about that yet, though. Okay. Nope. There we go. Okay. Let's see if I can get that off there so I don't drip it all over my kitchen floor. Oh, Lord. It's going to drip. I know. Nope. Haha, I made it. Okay. So we are going to pour the eggs in. With this, it is not like cake. You don't have to mix it for like, it's not like a 2.5 minute thing. You just want it well mixed. I am going to scrape down the sides while I'm in here. That thing I mentioned about the cake, just so you know, when your cake recipe tells you how long you should mix it for, that is not a joke. There's a lot of chemical stuff happening when you bake. That's one thing that a lot of people mess up on, and it's why a lot of your cakes don't turn out right. It does need to mix for that amount of time. Obviously, like if you're off, hopefully you guys can hear me. Obviously, if you're off by a little bit, like if you go for 3 minutes or 2 minutes instead of 2.5, it's not going to be a disaster, but you can overmix and also undermix. And that's what causes a lot of the issues with it, like not baking properly, where the consistency ends up being off. Okay. So this is, I hope, yeah, you guys can see that consistency. It's pretty thick still. So I am going to add some milk to it. And when I say milk, what I actually mean is heavy cream. I'm using heavy cream just because, like I said, I'm not going to use the full amount that it calls for in the recipe for milk. But while I'm doing it, I still wanted to have that extra creamy taste to it. So I put just, I don't know, that was probably like a 1/4 cup in here. And we're going to mix it up a little bit more and see if we get it to a consistency that's going to settle right when I pour it into the bowl, and it's looking better already. Turn that up for a second. I am one of those people who will never follow a recipe exactly how it is written. I always want to do something a little bit different with it. And because of that, there's a lot of guessing in it. This is looking better. Okay. So the next thing, or the final thing I'm going to do with the mix here is I'm going to add some spices to it. I don't like putting a whole bunch of spices in. I've mentioned this before. It's not that I don't have a tolerance for spices. It's just that I don't like the flavor of the sweet potatoes to get overpowered. Pumpkin pie always has way too much seasoning in it, or spices, pumpkin pie spice in it for me. Sweet potato tends to be a little bit lower. Did I ever pull that thing out? No, because I'm irresponsible. Let me fix this. There we go. No longer sealed. Yeah, I don't like to go overboard because I like to actually be able to taste the sweet potato or the pumpkin if I'm doing something with pumpkin. So just a little bit to give it a little hint of spices to it. And we're gonna mix this up one more time, and we're gonna see how it tastes. Okay. So that should have got the spices incorporated enough in it. Let's give it a little scrape on the sides. And all right, so I'm going to taste it. I'm going to go ahead and put that disclaimer on here that this does have raw eggs in it. So, you know, don't taste it if you're worried about salmonella. Yeah, I like it. So, if you're happy with it, go ahead and salvage as much as you can. This isn't cake batter. It's not something that you really want to just sit here and eat out of the bowl. So get as much off of that as you can. I am happy with that. And we are going to go back to our pan with the crust. That crust, in case you were wondering, did not have any sort of baking or anything done with it. It is still a raw crust. You don't need to par bake it or anything like that. And look at that cheesecake filling. Look at that terrible color that it is on my computer. I'm sorry. It looks much prettier here. It has just a nice, like a peachy color to it. This one is not completely smooth. I did, as I mentioned earlier, I did put the sweet potatoes through that fine mesh strainer, but that only strains it so much. I could have done it a second time, or I could have used some cheesecloth if I had had it. I did not. So you just want to get that pretty smooth. Obviously, it will level out some when you bake it and it warms up. But that is looking pretty good right there. I'm happy with that. Okay. So one more time, I will say you do need to put this on a cookie sheet because, again, there's all that butter in the crust, and because you are using a springform pan for it, it does not make a perfect seal down there. It's a good seal, don't get me wrong. Like, certainly batter is never going to leak out of this, but with the how spring pans work, they are not strong enough to hold in butter when it melts. So some of the butter will leach out into it, and you don't want to have that dripping all over your oven. Depending on the cheesecake that you're baking, you might want to put it into a bath, a water bath, a bain-marie. I'm not worried about that this time either. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this into my oven that is preheated at 375, and I'm going to let it bake. Fun fact, I have a weirdly small oven. Ooh, how do I want to do this? I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting a technical problem right now. Hold on one second. Same size. All right, I'm just gonna let it go how it is. Okay, so I'm having this weird technical problem. I apologize again. I'll explain it in a moment. Alexa, set timer for 30 minutes. Okay. I'm sorry, Alexa just said something weird to me. Okay, I'm sorry. My weird technical difficulty is some of my cookie sheets are the exact same width as my oven, which means that they don't fit on the actual rack. I have to like put them into the grooves where the rack goes. And of course, the way that we have our racks in our oven, there's not like a good middle setting for me to put that on. So I had to jury rig it slightly. It's fine. It's sitting directly on a rack, and the cookie sheet is below it. Hi, guys. Remember me? That's been me the whole time. Yeah. Okay. So it is 9:24. I've got a whole bunch of things running right now. So I think this is a good time for me to go ahead and get the next sprint going. We're going to go for 15 minutes again. Oh, and Synthesia's brain is fried from work. Yeah, that blanket turning out as blacket, I have issues like that constantly when it gets late for me. 148 words is still 148 words, though. Okay, so let me actually get this timer going. My computer's blowing up right now. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we are going to go for Oh man, that took longer than I wanted it to. Okay, so we're gonna go for the next 15 minutes. Sorry that break took so long. I thought it was gonna be faster than that. I'm also clicking the wrong button over and over again right now. Okay, we are gonna go for 15 minutes. It is 9:25, so that is going to take us to 9:40. Good luck, everybody. Ooh, touchpads do not work when your fingers are wet. Okay. So I spent most of that break doing dishes, unfortunately. I did get a little bit of writing done. The other thing I got done was I got my eggs boiled and cooled. I mentioned before that I am making deviled eggs as well tomorrow, and I figure since I showed you guys how to make a cheesecake, I'm not going to show you guys how to make deviled eggs. I don't have time for that, but I am going to just take like a little 5, and then we'll get like a last 15-minute sprint in, and I figure that in this amount of time, I'll show you how to peel an egg. Now, there are 8 million hacks out there for how to peel an egg, but this is just like the most basic. You don't need a whole bunch of supplies. You're not doing an ice bath. You're not doing anything. This is just how to make it easier. A lot of people will like do a little crack on it and try to peel it, and it just doesn't work. What you want to do is you want to break it on the, so this is the pointier end, and this is the more rounded end. You want to smack it on the counter just lightly to crack that, and then put it in a towel and roll it. And that will, yeah, you guys could see that. It's broken up a lot more than it was. And then that way, when we go to peel it, you want to start at that bottom again. You start at the bottom because usually that's where this little air pocket is. There's probably a fancy term for it. I don't know what it is, but you see that because I did that little crack and smush thing, this shell is just coming right off. How I boiled these eggs was I put them in fairly cold tap water. I guess I can just say tap water. I put them in tap water and then put them on the stove and just let it run at high for 20 minutes. That is just how I remember to do eggs. I make deviled eggs constantly, and I've never had an issue with them overcooking. So like every time I see those numbers online, it always says like 12 minutes. I'm guessing that's coming from boiling. I don't like to put the eggs in the water when the water is boiling because it splashes and they're more likely to crack. I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just superstition on my part. But yeah, I just put them in tap warm water or tap water. Cold water words, and just put them on high heat for 20 minutes, and then to cool them, that timer went off right at the beginning of that break, so they were only sitting there for 15 minutes. And basically, as soon as that 20-minute timer went off, I drained the hot water, the boiling water, and then I refilled it with cold water. And about 5 minutes after that, I drained that water, which had warmed up. I drained that off, and I put another round of cold water in it. And now they are comfortable for me to handle. And again, you see how incredibly quickly and easily I am peeling these. I make deviled eggs probably like, I don't know. Whenever people come over, I make deviled eggs because everybody loves my deviled eggs. Not to brag or anything, but I make amazing deviled eggs. But so it used to be that I would make deviled eggs like 4 to 6 times a year. Obviously, that hasn't been the case this year. But I will say that like I'm pretty fast at peeling, partially because I do this a lot, but also having that technique down, making sure, this is another thing, when you peel eggs, there is that like extra layer. I don't know what it is. I guess it's like the underlayer of the shell. I don't know enough about actual eggs to the biology behind them to identify what it is, but there's, my lighting is nowhere near good enough. But there's that like extra thin membrane underneath it. You want to make sure you grab that with the hard shell. But usually that comes off pretty easily as well. And if possible, you want to use slightly older eggs. This is something where the fresher the egg is not the better. So in that 4-minute break while talking to you guys, or 5-minute break while talking to you guys, I peeled 4 eggs. I feel pretty good about that. I've only got 5 left. We're going to go ahead and do our last sprint. I'm going to finish up these eggs, and I'm probably going to have about 10 minutes left to write, and then I'm going to see what's going on with that cheesecake. So go ahead and write, guys, and I'll see you in 15 minutes. Okay, so that is time. I got all of those eggs peeled, and I am going to pull the cheesecake out right now. My timer actually went off a few minutes ago, and I decided it needed a few minutes more. One of the problems with cheesecakes is doneness is hard to tell with them. So let's see what we got here. Oh yeah, that's some burning butter right there. I don't know. Okay, so cheesecake. Oh, geez, there we go. The cheesecake still has a bit of a wobble to it, which of course you can't see because the camera sucks. But cheesecake is going to have a bit of a wobble. What you want to look for is if it's more solid on the edges than in the center. Unfortunately, this mix ended up being a little thicker than usual, so I don't really have that line. I feel like I'm done though, because I am seeing there are those bigger cracks in it, but I also have some like smaller cracks in it. So I'm going to call that as done. Now, the big thing with cheesecake, Ken, do you mind getting that pan out so they don't burn more? Thank you. Okay, so the thing with cheesecake is it's all about the cooling. So right now, I'm going to let it sit on the counter for about 10 minutes before I even touch it. At that point, I'm going to loosen the edges of the cheesecake with a butter knife, just so that they're not stuck to the edge. And then I'm going to pop the spring form. I'm only going to pop it though, and then I'm going to let it sit. You want to let it sit to get down to room temperature, at least like 3 hours. I'm going to go ahead and let this one sit. Oh God, I'm not even on camera. Hey, I'm going to let this sit overnight because it's already 10 o'clock here. But yeah, I'm just going to let it sit out all night. I know it seems weird because it's cheesecake. You think you want to refrigerate it. You do not want to put it in the refrigerator immediately. It is much better to let it sit out overnight. Maybe if I wake up in the middle of the night, I'll pop it back in the refrigerator, but I'm definitely not going to be putting that in the fridge before I go to bed. So that is the end of the show. I will be doing this again at 8 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. So if you guys are up and around in 10 hours, I will be too. If not, and if you're in the United States, happy Thanksgiving, and I will see you guys later. Happy writing to you.